I'm going to talk a little bit now about how to use Lexis for statutory research. But in many ways, I'm talking about how to do statutory research generally and some of the things that I would encourage you to do when researching. The first thing I always do is pick the most specific resource possible. Now, I could drift through here, find federal, and then go down and find the U.S. Code Service if it wasn't already up. But since I use this a lot, it pops up as one of the things that I use. But otherwise, you could start with content federal and find this. So the most specific way to find statutes is the U.S. Code, which is the statutory code of the federal legal system. So I click that and I go in. Now I can search or drill down to what I'm looking for depending on my my interest. For example, I'm going to run some searches here, but if I was looking for something to do with crimes and criminal procedure, I might actually go straight to crimes and look up the crimes that I kind of know are out there. So if I'm looking for civil disorders or civil rights or conspiracy, I may go directly down there and find it. Codes are laid out, criminal codes are laid out fairly uniformly, and you can get to them that way. I'm going to do a search of health and emergencies. But I'm just going to go ahead and put a little truncator on there to get emergency and emergencies, and I'm going to click. And it's going to take me to something that's called public health emergencies. Now, no statute you find in a search is going to stand on its own. Statutes are part of collections of statutes which make up the regulatory or statutory package for a particular issue. One of the things I would suggest, and I'm going to show you, is to go into a statute and go back to the table of contents. But one of the things Lexis has done is kind of showed you where you are in the tree. So public health emergencies here is under federal state cooperation, and that's under general powers and duties, and that goes back to the Public Health Service and the overall public health and welfare title, which is a huge sprawling title that includes Social Security, Medicare, all kinds of things having to do with the public health and welfare of Americans. So I've got this statute. I can look through at other ones. Some of them are useful. I will go back and look at them, but this one looks pretty much on point, so I'm going to go to it. All right. Once I'm here, I can read the statute, and there's a number of things I can look at while I'm here. So I go through the statute, and down towards the bottom, there's history. This is legislative history. So we're going to talk a little bit about legislative history before, but much of the basic history, beyond the legislative history of a particular statute, is the prior statutes that they were based on, particularly in the federal government. Statutes are passed and amended regularly for year after year. The Medicare and Medicaid acts are essentially amendments to the Social Security Act. And what we call the ACA or Obamacare is an amendment of the Medicare Act. So when you go through a federal statute, at least, you're going to see a rich history beforehand. And by rich, I mean when you do legislative history in federal system, it's complicated. But you can see the latest amendments and those sorts of things. Some of them might be on point. Particularly now, you'll see something that is March 27, 2020. This is clearly part of the COVID-19 response, and that may be very relevant to the research you're doing. And here has something to do with reports by testing laboratories, also important. Under researches and references and practice aids, there's not a lot here, but I always encourage people to look at this. First of all, you can get the regs that are here. And in other cases, not here, there are notes to treatises that will explain to you the statute a lot better than you trying to read the statute. Again, federal statutory law is extremely complex, and it's written with kind of an understanding of 50 to 75 years of history, or even more. So to unball that, it's nice to have a secondary source to tell you all what it means. If the topic is very important, I'd look over here at the pending legislation bill. There's a compare versions thing that's very new. I haven't tested it out, but it helps you look at changes to if there are new changes to a statute, what they all mean. Okay. As I said, if you click on full table of contents, you'll see other things in this this 247 part of the code, and you can see many of them deal with things like vaccine tracking and public health security. Back after 9/11, there was a scare over anthrax, so at some level, the national security of the United States is implicated by public health emergencies, whether they be naturally occurring or by biological weaponry. All right, I'm going back to the results list. I could have clicked the back to the results list. One of the things I'm going to just suggest you do here is remember that once you get a result, you don't have to put everything in your search. Pull out, okay, the thing I need definitely has to do with public health and emergencies. I'm going to search public health and emergencies first, and then I'm going to refine it by search within results. So I'm going to put pandemic in here just to see what comes up. So I'm searching within results and finding things that have to do with that. So I've seen under generally the Social Security Act various waivers due to public emergencies due to pandemic, and some of the facilities for that, and the use of healthcare professionals and those kind of things. So it's may have been a very good waiver of that. Note that authority to waive requirements, Social Security Act. If you read this, this is actually about Medicare, and it has down in some of the newer materials, under 2020 some of the emergency measures that allowed for telehealth and other waivers of the Medicare statute. So you could pay for visits through um, telehealth instead of other visits.